Well, welcome again to our office hour sessions, usually at Tuesdays and Thursdays at 1 p.m. Eastern. I'm Joe Webby. I head up the Entrepreneur in Residence program with Harvard Alumni Entrepreneurs. And we have a great presentation today. Feel free to submit your questions during the presentation, send them by private message, or wait till the end to ask your questions. And about HAE, we're a volunteer-managed, locally organized nonprofit connecting alumni, faculty, staff, and friends throughout the university and globally. And we're all about connecting you to the resources that you need. So please sign up again on HAE Connect. Today's session is part 4 of the Startup Code series, which was started at MIT. It was a one-day marketing seminar. Today's session is on how to create brilliant products and services that sell. Our guest, Kenny Goodman, is the founder of Find the Edge, a marketing mentorship firm that targets small business owners and coaches and consultants. He's a digital entrepreneur and publisher, and he developed a system called the Client Accelerator Formula, which accelerates client acquisition, helps companies work better and smarter for their customers. Welcome, Kenny Goodman, joining us from the UK.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Thank you so much for being here. I'll stop sharing my screen and hand it over to you.
Okay, great. Are you ready to go?
All yours. Go ahead, please.
Fantastic. Okay. Thanks. Okay. So firstly, I want to obviously say thank you for inviting me. I feel very honored to be here. I just must warn you, it's 6 p.m. on a Friday here. There is no lockdown anymore, so we're post-lockdown. My office here is in the middle of a northern town of Altrincham you probably watched the Game of Thrones, so you probably know how rowdy northerners get. So you may hear a little bit of noise around because there's bars and restaurants and stuff outside. Secondly, I'm going to be providing you a link to the presentation at the end. And also I'll point you in the direction of more resources as well, because there's only so much we can go through in this short amount of time. So you can sit back and relax, and I'm sure you're videoing it as well. So you'll get, I'm sure you'll get access to the video as well. Can you just type into the box, and Joe, if you can tell me what the answers are, if you could just type in who your favorite entrepreneur is, that would be good.
2 Elon Musk so far. Steve Jobs, Tobias Lutke, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, some good ones there, and you know, lots of Elon Musk there. But most entrepreneurs, you know, there's 2 things they all have in common, and that is that they all have childlike qualities in that they dare to be different. They're fearless, they're imaginative and playful. And also, like children, they got back up again when they made mistakes and fell. And this allowed them to all eventually create products and services that sold. And this is why the title of today's presentation is How to Create Brilliant Products and Services That Sell. And the agenda is, first of all, I'm just going to very quickly point out who the presentation is for. Then I'm going to cover very quickly why most startups fail and what to do to avoid this. And then the main part of the presentation today is how to ensure your business thrives by following 3 specific demand phases. And this is the main part of the presentation, where I'm going to talk you through how to go through phase 1, which is mapping the journey, then phase 2, identifying the jobs, using the jobs to be done theory, then phase 3, using all of that information to create value. So first of all, my goal on this presentation today is to help 2 types of people. Those of you who are in early stage, so you might be creating a new product or you know, a completely new business, or if you're in later stage, so you may have had a few rounds of investment and you're looking to develop your existing products and services to scale your businesses. Now, I'm sure you've probably heard what a unicorn is. It's a privately owned business that has hit $1 billion. And this slide here shows the explosion of unicorns from 2011. And as you can see, it's absolutely exploded. And can you imagine how exciting it would be to build a company that grew to that level, and what good you could do for the world if you had that? But 90% of startups fail, according to Forbes, and 75% of venture-backed startups fail, according to Harvard Business School. And less than 1.5% of those that do succeed hit 100 employees. And that's kind of like a pretty good measure of how a business is performing if it has a good, strong employee base. The issues? Well, the biggest single issue is that they didn't create a product or service that made it to a market that needed it. Because according to CB Insights, 42% of startups fail due to no market need. They hardly get out of the gate. Another huge issue that isn't talked about much is what I call problem solution blindness. So even if you have identified a product with a market need, you can still fail if you have two-dimensional problem solution thinking. So you just think about those two things, find a problem worth solving with the right market, etc. And then, develop a solution to satisfy that problem. This is all good enough, but most fail to understand that products are a service, and a service is an entire experience, starting from the customer identifying that they are experiencing a struggle, then identifying a solution, then looking at choice sets, then eventually choosing a product. But it doesn't stop there. They then need to know how to use that product to make the progress they desire. If you understand that products are a service and a service is a whole experience, you won't only win more customers, but you'll also keep them. And in this mega competitive environment that we're all in, that is super important to build a thriving business. Now, other issues include the usual one, the usual suspects: running out of money, getting out competed, poor marketing, disharmony among the team, loss of focus, and building user unfriendly products. And all of this could have been avoided if they'd listened to their customers first to establish what value they're looking for, and then created an experience for them that helped them make progress every step of the way. You see, once you do, incredible things will happen, because you'll understand what is causing demand. And it isn't supply that causes demand, it's struggling moments. And we're going to talk a lot about struggling moments today, because once you understand this, it's going to allow you to design and create products faster, because you'll focus only on features your customers truly want and need. You'll expand from problem solution focused to a before, during, and after service, creating a total experience, resulting in your reputation and recognition soaring, because you will be serving your customers in a much more focused and experiential way than anyone else. And I think you can do this by following 3 powerful demand phases. And I'm going to be showing you examples of businesses that I have, where I've used this later on in the presentation. Now, these 3 phases are, first of all, map the journey. And I'll go through that first of all. Then once you've mapped the journey, you then need to understand the jobs to be done. And I'm sure many of you heard the jobs to be done theory. And even if you haven't, I'll be covering this and giving my interpretation of it during this section. And I'll also be showing you how I've used it in this section within 2 of my businesses. And then phase 3 is using all of that information to then create value for your customers. So let's start with phase 1, mapping the journey. And this first phase involves 3 important steps. And the first step is to understand 2 key important points. You see, customers are driven by B goals. So that's the first thing you need to understand. And the ideal self is made up of multiple B goals. And those B goals are what motivate us to carry out do goals. And the do goals are fulfilled by motor control goals, which are the lowest priority, with the B goals having the highest priority. Now, these B goals are our core drivers of all of our decisions and actions. And in the example, the ideal self has chosen to be thoughtful, and the ideal self will work hard to achieve that, but can choose a myriad of different do goals to achieve that, and even more variables when it comes to motor control goals. The B goals are the emotionally driven goals, and so carry all the weight, with the motor control goals usually being very functional. So understand, first of all, that customers have B goals. And I'll be talking more about this and giving you examples very shortly. The second thing you need to understand in this first step is that customers hire products because they have jobs to be done. This is very similar to why employers hire employees. If an employer is hiring a salesperson, what are they hiring them to do? To sell, right? And what happens if they stop selling? They fire them. And it's exactly the same with customers. Customers will fire products as fast as they hire them if they're not producing for them, if they're not helping them make progress. So the job is the progress a consumer is looking to make in a specific situation. To be is the desired progress yet to be in existence, and done is when a product or service is hired and progress is actually made. The product does the work while the consumer enjoys the benefits. So it's a little bit like the employee does the work while the employer enjoys the benefits. So if you think of it like that, it's easier to understand. But let me give you an example. And I'm not totally sure why I came up with this example. I think it was when I had a kind of dirty car one day. And this isn't my car, by the way, and this isn't me. But this person, this man, he's driving along and he's parking his car where he normally parks, and he realizes his car is really dirty and all the other cars lined up are sparkling clean, and he feels like he doesn't fit in. He feels a little bit embarrassed, actually, and even unattractive. So his job to be done at that point in time is he wants to fit in, he wants to impress, you know, even be recognized and be attractive. And his B goal is he wants to belong. And so the solution he can hire is a clean car. That's the solution. And he can achieve that with several different choice sets. He can use a soapy bucket and a sponge if he has financial constraints, or if his value code is to contribute to the local community, he may choose his neighbor's teenager, or he may choose an automated car wash, or he may go the whole hog and choose a professional wash. You need to understand your customers' B goals and also their jobs to be done. And to do this, you need to plan a conversation with them. So that brings us to the next step once you understand what you need to understand. So you need to plan who you're going to speak with. And this is, if you do this, if you speak with your customers, you'll be so far ahead of the game and your competitors, because no one wants to do this. No one takes the time. When I say no one, I'm being generalistic there, but the majority of businesses just don't do it. And so you need to plan who you're going to speak with. So customers, if you already have customers, or people you think will be like your future customers, the consumers. You want to be doing a minimum of 10 interviews, and more if possible. I interview a lot more of that than that with my businesses. And so they want to be, you know, a diverse group of income, age, gender, geography, just that you can start seeing some patterns there. Preferably people who have made a recent switch in the last 1 to 2 months. You don't want them when they've just made a switch, because they've probably not had time to use it yet. But you also don't want them when they made a switch, you know, so long ago that they don't remember any of the process of what took them to the position of making that switch. And you need to plan to speak with each one for about an hour if possible. Now, you're not always going to be able to speak to people for an hour. You know, they may not have that kind of time depending on who they are. That, you know, the product that you're selling might not warrant an hour, might not be a, you know, an emotional purchase at all, because it's, you know, it might just be a very cheap product. Why do we interview? Well, so sorry, I jumped ahead there. The next step is interview, and obviously you've got to plan and then interview. But why do we interview? Well, it gets beyond the generic services you think people want and gets to the real specifics, the fine margins that make all the detail. And like I say, you do this, you're gonna have an unfair advantage over your competitors, because most of your competitors just survey people, and people find it easy to lie online. People open up and really do find the truth with the right level of questioning and the right empathy. And you're able to uncover what makes people switch products either to yours or away from yours. So if you're a later stage startup and you're wondering why your attrition rate is so high, this is a great way to find out what has actually gone wrong, rather than just surveying people, you know, taking the lazy route. So when someone switches from a current product to a new product, nothing happens by chance. There are forces at play that cause people to do what they do. It might kind of seem irrational, but the irrational becomes rational with context and understanding the system and causality. There are progress making forces and there are progress hindering forces. There's the push of the current situation. So what's kind of struggling moment has made them start thinking about the new product. And in the instance, let's use an example here. Let's look at someone, you know, using the current product of a book or a Kindle, and then looking at a new product and considering Audible, for example. Well, the push of the current situation might be, I love reading and learning on my commute on the train, but I'm starting a new job that requires me to drive because I can't get a train there. And so I want to continue doing that. And obviously I can't read my Kindle or book anymore because I'll be driving. Then there's the pull of the new idea. So what was it about the new product that led them to try it? Audible is a market leader. It's easy to set up on my phone and I can listen to books while I drive to work. So those kind of things might come out. Then there's the anxiety of the new product, the anxiety of change. So what anxieties did they have about the new product? So an example might be, will I lose some of the book's context without the visual diagrams? And then also habits of the present. So what habits did they have that held them back from trying the new solution at the beginning? So one might be, you know, my podcasts are free and I still enjoy them. So this kind of information, as you can imagine, once you gather in all of this off lots of people, it starts to build some really good information that you can use not only in creating your products, but also the marketing of your products as well. So, you know, for example, with podcasts and stuff, you could kind of demonize podcasts because you know that's a consideration of theirs. So you might demonize podcasts in your marketing by saying that, you know, they're full of adverts, etc. What you want to do when you're interviewing people is build a timeline from the very first thought, that very first struggling moment, and then any other events, any other key events, any other kind of struggling moments, to the point where they decide to buy, and then when they use the solution. But we start our questioning, and I'm going to give you some generic questions here. You can build your own questions, of course, but I will point you in the direction of a book at the end that will help you build your own questions. But this will give you some ideas to start off on the process. And we start at this point, and the job of this section, so we're starting the question of when, the point of sale, the job of this section is to get them to remember, to get those neurons firing again. So we ask questions like, where were you? When was it? Who were you with? Was it in the morning? Was it in the afternoon? Was it in the evening? So we're building some context there just to get them thinking again. What was the weather like? What else did you buy at the same time? And then once we've got them opened up and those neurons firing again, we then try and get that crucial first thought. And the first thought is really important, because if you get a pattern of these when you're questioning people, that information is going to be golden for you. When did you first realize you needed something to solve the issue? Where were you? Who were you with? Tell me more about how you felt. And then once you've kind of got that first thought, you then want to kind of get any other key events and find out, if they had any considerations and what got them through those opposing forces of the habit of the present and anxiety of change. So we're going to ask questions like, what else happened that made you realize you needed a new product? Where were you? Who were you with? Tell me more about how you felt. What did you have to give up in order to move to this product? How did you look for products to solve your issue? What did you consider trying? Did you try them all? If not, why not? Did you get anyone else's opinion? If so, who and what was the outcome? And did you have any anxieties about buying? If so, why? And then we're going to dig into some pull factors with what research did you do into the company? And did you have any initial concerns? If so, what, and what made you buy anyway? And why did you choose this product rather than one of its competitors? Then once we've kind of got that information, we want to move to usage factors. And most companies out there, this is where the only place they really look to do any good questioning of their products, if any at all. So you'd ask questions like, how are you finding the product so far? What do you tell other people about the product? Where are you and when do you use it? And if you had a magic wand, what else would you make this product do for you? And have you recommended this product yet? If not, why not? And are there any features you don't use? If not, why not? Steve Jobs had a great quote. A lot of times people don't know what they want until you show it to them. I'd change it slightly to be, a lot of times people don't know what they want until you nudge it out of them. So that's the first phase. It's the longest phase. It's the hardest phase. It's where all the hard work is. It's mapping the journey and it's speaking to those customers. And you start off by understanding that there are B goals and your customers have B goals and jobs to be done. And then plan a minimum of 10 conversations with people you think will be your consumers. And interview people starting with point of purchase, work back to that first thought, try and get any other key events, and then go through to usage. So that's the first phase. Let's move on to the next phase, which is identifying jobs. And again, this has 3 important steps, starting with gathering and collating all of that information that you've just done, and it will have taken a lot of hard work to do it, and Now it's kind of the easy part, really. So what you're looking for is you want to collate situational descriptions. I'm going to show you some examples of this shortly. Struggling moments, push and pull moments, anxieties and habits moments, key trade-offs, hiring and firing criteria, common be goals supported by common do goals. Now, I'm going to give you some snippets of research that I did for my company. We obviously don't have time to go into the full research because we did a lot for this, but it'll give you a flavor of the information you can garner from interviewing. So I have my Find the Edge business, which is my consulting business. But a couple of years ago, I decided to invest some time into a nutrition business and create some brands around that. So we created a brand called Hello Pure here in the UK, and we sell throughout Europe now, and it's vitamins and supplements. And we decided to enter the beauty kind of focused food supplement world. And so we didn't really know too much about it. So we interviewed some people who'd recently bought one of our competitors, or some of our competitors, I should say, beauty-focused food supplements. I think you call them dietary supplements in the US. Now, what we found when we interviewed these people is a common situation was recently someone made a comment that distinctly made them realize they were aging and losing their looks. And the people we chose tended to be, we got people from a group actually, and they tended to be above 40. And I think about 75% or so were female as well. We later found that there's other target audiences for this as well. There's actually, we have a lot of people in their 20s buying it, but that's another story. But these people were kind of taking it because they'd noticed they were aging, and someone had made some kind of comment. And one comment that stood out to me was a woman who we spoke to, and she said she was in a shop and she asked the assistant something, and this woman who was in the shop was in her 40s, and the assistant was in her 60s. And I can't remember the comment, but the woman in her 60s said to the woman in her 40s, you know, women of our age shop over in this section, or something along those lines. But she kind of put this woman into her category, and it really upset her. And so that was like a real moment where she thought, I've got to, you know, I'm aging here. You know, I've got to look into this. So the desire that a lot of people had was they wanted people to comment on how good they looked. How the word they used a lot was radiant or glowing, which was really interesting to us that we made note of. So the B goal was to be radiant. They wanted recognition. They wanted to feel more energized and youthful as well. And so that was another desire they had. They wanted to, their B goal was to be energized and youthful. They wanted to feel confident about how they looked. So their B goal was to be confident, which was going to help their self-esteem. Some of the constraints we found were they didn't understand nutrition enough to make an informed decision on personal needs. So that almost stopped them purchasing. And also they were worried about running out of this product and what would happen. Would they all of a sudden, you know, start looking better, and then they run out of the product and they can't get it again, and so they you know, they start losing the benefits that the product has given them. And also they're usually quite premium, these products, so I'd have to reduce my spending in other areas to afford these. So these were some of the constraints that came out that we could use. The trigger, as I mentioned before, is someone made an age-related comment. That was usually the first thought, but not always. And then another life event along the way was I noticed a new aging feature, so maybe a fine line on the face, or, you know, some grey hair. And that was sometimes their first thought. And the trade-offs were, I'd like it to be cheaper. So if you just sent me the capsules without the fancy bottle, I could just refill. And then some of the other choice sets that considered was Botox, but they had a fear of being obvious and people thinking them shallow and vain, and plastic surgery, but fear of it harming them and making them look fake. And this kind of information is great because we can use that to demonize those other choice sets within our marketing in a very subtle way, of course. So once you've focused that information into some kind of chart like that, some kind of table, I should say, it's time to then kind of encompass it into the whole experience, from first thoughts to point of sale to usage. And some key points we used were to, from that information, we've got a lot of information, but from that information, we decided to, this is the product we chose, and we created a subscription model. We use pouches for subsequent orders. We get a nutritionist on board to answer questions. We also use capsules rather than powder. Sorry, I don't know what's happened with the slides now. This is the product here that we designed. And as you can see there, we called it Radiance by Hello Pure because people kept using the term radiance. So a collagen capsule product designed by an accomplished scientist and plastic surgeon. So getting people over that kind of barrier of can I trust this product? And we decided to go with capsules because a lot of people said they'd used collagen powder, but they didn't like it. They found it messy. They couldn't travel with it. They didn't like the lumps in it. They didn't like the taste. So we created these capsules, and we actually demonize powder because that's a big competitor of ours in our marketing in a very subtle way as well. And here's some of the shots we use in our, I think these are off Amazon actually where we sell it. And final shot there is one of our, the head of research here at Hello Pure, which is Dr. Ariana Di Stadio, who was at Harvard actually. She was at Harvard Medical School and she was a senior research fellow there. And I met her at MIT a few years ago when I was speaking there. And she has a strong interest in food supplements. So it was really good to get her on board with the business. Another example of focusing this information is a kombucha drink we decided to create. So my business partner, she lived in America for a while. She lived in Richmond in Virginia, and she saw how big kombucha is in the States. And then we looked at the data and we saw how big it was in Canada and Australia. I think it had grown like 700% in the last 2 years in Australia. And it's still not big here in the UK or Europe. You know, most people don't know what kombucha is at all. And so we thought there could be a real good opening here to kind of get in early and catch that wave when it happens. So we decided to add a kombucha drink to our business. And in the end, we decided to create a brand new brand. So I'll talk you through that right now. And the target audience we chose at the beginning were kind of these first adopters here in the UK who tended to be hipsters, young hipsters in bars. That's where we found them drinking it. And we spoke to those people who were drinking it, and we pulled out those who just started drinking it in the last month or two and then interviewed them. And the common situation they had, and we found other common situations since when we've interviewed other people who buy it from health stores. But let's just look at this example to start with. They were sick of going out with friends and being pressured to order alcohol. And so their desire was, they still wanted to fit in and be part of the culture, and they wanted to belong and be cool. That was really what they wanted, and that's why they started drinking kombucha. They wanted to feel good about what they consumed as well. So they wanted to be healthy. That was their B goal. So that comes under physical thriving. And they wanted to feel confident about trying something new. So they wanted to be adventurous. That was their B goal, which really helped their self-esteem. The constraints we found were it still contains sugar, and sugar is bad for you. So in our marketing now, we make that a point. We face sugar head on, and why it's so important for kombucha, for the fermentation process. And if you don't use sugar, you don't get all the good stuff, all the organic acids, etc. And so we face that head on, and that's the best way to deal with anything like that. And we also point out that, you know, an orange juice contains 3 times the amount of sugar, and a carrot juice contains more sugar as well, which just gives them that comparison. Another constraint we found was they don't know what kombucha is, and that puts them off ordering it. You know, in case their friend asks, you know, questions, what's that you're drinking? And they want to be able to answer it. So we made a note of that as well. The trigger points we found were they'd caved into pressure from their friends, they drank alcohol and got a hangover, which ruined the following day. So that was kind of like their first thought. Life event was they saw someone else order a kombucha, and actually others in the group really accepting of it and even curious about it. So it was kind of cool to drink this as well. And sometimes that was the first thought as well. The trade-offs we found were would like it to be cheaper and not bothered about the fancy bottling that most of them come in. So we made a mental note of that as well. And then other choice sets they'd considered were kefir, but that's made of a yogurt, so they were concerned about how their breath would smell when they're out and about. And alcohol-free beer or wine or sodas and stuff, but they don't like the taste of that. And with the sodas and stuff, there was just no complexity there either. So we utilized all of that. And so we created Booch and Brew Kombucha. And it's a cool brand design that helps non-drinkers fit in and feel part of the culture while drinking healthy. And it's available in bars and restaurants. And we also do it on tap. And we created a point of sale information to help people gen up quickly on that. In fact, we're in the process of redoing that. And it's been really successful. And we launched that in April last year, 2019, and won a Great Taste Award in our first year, which is pretty good over here in the UK. And we got chosen by WeWork to be their sole kombucha provider as well. So that is, sorry, I pressed that earlier then. That is mapping the journey and also identifying the jobs. So when you're identifying the jobs, collate the information and look out for patterns and clusters. Focus on common situations, desires, constraints, triggers, trade-offs, and other choice sets, and encompass the whole experience from first thought to, you know, those other key events, those life events, those moments, those struggling moments, to actually using the product. So now let's look at phase 3, which is the fun phase, because this is the creating phase, and this is about creating value, which also has 3 important steps. You may notice that I love the number 3 here. And the first step is to eliminate. So we want to eliminate any unnecessary features where possible, and hopefully this information that we've gathered will help us do that and stop any wastage, you know, the wastage of time and resources on unnecessary features. We want to eliminate tasks for the consumer. This is really important. That's before the purchase. So we need to look at what's going on before the purchase, the point of sale, and also usage. And also, sorry, your customers don't want to do stuff unless the product is craft related. So let me point this out. Consumers don't want to do this. They want this. And this is why IKEA has been so successful. IKEA's innovation was to create furniture that you could order and assemble yourself without needing to, you know, cut a straight line, drill a 1/4-inch hole, or even need or want a 1/4-inch hole. Moreover, in 2017, IKEA bought TaskRabbit. If you don't know what TaskRabbit is, it's where you can hire people locally to do tasks for you, like assemble furniture. And they bought this because they also understand that people don't want to do stuff. They don't want to assemble and build furniture. Rather, people want to be organized. They want to express their individuality and feel comfortable in their home. IKEA understand how to encompass the whole user experience. It's a little bit like Apple with their, you know, their whole flow, their Genius Bar, and then their aftercare service afterwards. So ensure that development is achievable in the shortest possible time so that you can prototype and launch fast. So that's eliminate, which is definitely the fun part. The next part is looking for ways to prove your claims and your promises or statements. So you really want to be proving that this is a good product, because you want to get testers on there and you want to get it out to market and then use that information so that you can sell your product. Trust has been eroded and we have less than 10 seconds to grab and keep someone's attention. They need to quickly understand your offer, understand it is relevant to them, that it's valuable to them, and whether the risk is acceptable. And ultimately, whether they trust you enough to part with their hard-earned cash and switch to your product. So supporting factors that can help this are facts and studies, any kind of imagery, stories about how your product came to play, any kind of risk reversals like a guarantee or a results in advance kind of process, testimonials, or credibility, or you know, if you can coattail on the back of something. There's one thing most of the people on this call have in common, and that is your connection to Harvard, you know, and you should utilize that in any of your promotional material. So example here is Andrew Percy, who did a talk for you recently. I don't know whether you attended or not, but Andrew is a pay-per-click expert, a Google pay-per-click expert. He trained at MIT. And so he shows on his website, which is called Prometheus PPC, he shows his benefits really well. And then he uses case studies with facts. So if you can get some case studies, even if you get your, you know, start off with just, you know, friends and family using it, get some true case studies. Andrew does it really well here because he has lots of them. You can scroll and scroll them, which is brilliant and really builds that trust. And they're very specific. So, you know, one there as an example is 1.4 million in new business in the first 6 months. And it's a real business there. And, you know, you can go and check that business and check that it's real, which really adds that trust in there. And then there's credibility. He makes the most of his, you know, he's got a hero shot there of him, you know, on stage there. He points out that he's, you know, got 2 degrees from MIT. He points out that he's got 15 years of experience in corporate marketing and PPC advertising. So he's got the credibility as well. And then he's got some testimonials and then a big fat call to action at the end as well. So once you've got that proof together, you can then use that to find testers and get as many people using it as possible. And you want to prototype your product or service and get that feedback as fast as you can. Now, the fastest way to get in front of your target customers is obviously free samples, usage groups, beta testers, that type of thing. So if you've got current customers, use them. If not, try pay-per-click or referral partners. You know, if you have software, for example, there's companies like AppSumo that have hundreds of thousands of people looking to beta test software, and they pay a fee to beta test, but they expect lifetime value in return. And then influencers as well. So the ultimate innovation disruptor for me is Uber, because I used to hate taking taxis. So it was like glorious innovation disruptor. I just loved it because I used to call up taxis, and you know, even if I was in a foreign city, I'd have communication issues. Then when the cab is late, you know, you call them up and they always say it's just around the corner. When it eventually shows up 45 minutes later, the cab smells, so does the driver usually. The driver is talking on his cell phone whilst, you know, steering the car, sometimes steering it with his knees, sometimes, you know, texting people. It's really dangerous journey. The meter is clocking up dollars whilst he gives you the unrequested long tour of his city. Then we finally get there and it costs a fortune. And then he looks at me with those hungry eyes, urging me for a tip. And me being the soft person that I am, I always hand over a tip. Uber saw all of those struggling moments, and they may not have seen them all at once, but over time they saw them. And they created the best value proposition for people like me who didn't like the traditional way of taking taxis. And it's 3 simple words: easiest way around. 1 tap and the car comes directly to you. Hop in and your driver knows exactly where to go. And when you get there, just step out. Payment is completely seamless. So let's do a recap of the 3 phases. So phase 1, map your journey. Understand that customers have B goals and jobs to be done. Plan minimum of 10 conversations with people you think will be your consumers. Interview people, starting with the point of purchase, work back to that first thought, then any of the struggling moments, and then through to usage. Then once you've mapped that journey and interviewed, etc., then it's time to identify the jobs and then collate this information, look out for patterns and clusters, focus and find those common situations, the desires, the constraints, the triggers, the trade-offs, and other choice sets so that you can overcome any kind of objections, or if you need to demonize any of those other choice sets, you can do. And then encompass the whole experience from first thought to using the product. And then the final phase was create value by eliminating any unnecessary features or tasks for your consumer. Prove your claims, promises, or statements, and then test as fast as possible using your current customers or stuff like PPC, referral partners, or influencers. So the takeaway from this is read these books. When Coffee and Kale Compete. This is by Alan Clement, and I've actually worked with Alan on a project. I'm the CMO of a company called MedMap, which is a Silicon Valley-based startup in the life sciences field. And Alan really helped us out on that project. So I really like that book, When Coffee and Kale Compete. Then there's Professor Clayton Christensen from Harvard, Competing Against Luck. It's quite an older book now. And then the Jobs to be Done handbook is good by Chris Speak and Bob Moester. And these guys talk you through interviewing in that book as well. And I've just bought this book, I don't know if you can see it, which is, I've not read it yet, which is the Jobs to be Done playbook by Jim Kalbach. So I'm going to look forward to reading that. And then read those books, find at least 10 people to interview. If you don't have consumers, find people on forums or, you know, Facebook groups or LinkedIn groups. Find a partner as well to help you interview. One person leads the call, the other interjects and takes notes, and you can bounce off each other. It's really good to do it with two people. Focus your findings into a table similar to mine. Obviously, you'll have a lot more information than I was able to show there. And then action your findings and test prototypes as fast as possible. If you do this properly, you'll give yourself a fighting chance to follow in the steps of these Harvard greats. That is the end of the presentation. Thank you very much for listening, and you can get your presentation notes and slides at findtheedge.com/Harvard-20, as in 2020. And feel free to email me at any point, kenny@findtheedge.com. I'd love to hear your feedback and speak to you and connect with you.
Hey, thank you so much, Kenny. That was really great. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing the link and the email. That went a little longer than we expected, but in the last couple minutes that we have, there's a few questions coming in the chat. So Jujubi is asking, in terms of starting phase one, should you start that phase one before you even have an MVP?
Absolutely. Yeah, if you can start then, brilliant. Yeah, for sure. That's going to help you build your MVP.
Mm-hmm. And should you have the landing page and coming soon, maybe ready before you start?
Yeah, absolutely. You may as well start trying to, collect email addresses of people who are going to be interested in the product, for sure.
Mm-hmm. What are some really good examples of call to actions that at that early stage when you're just trying to build your waiting list or such? Is there a resource that you recommend to get some inspiration?
There's lots of call to actions you can have. You can offer, it depends, of course, on your product. If you've got a very high-end product, that's very expensive, then you can offer, a conversation with people, which is always good, and, help them build some sort of strategy. If it's a high-end service, for example. If it's low-end, then you can use what we call lead magnets. So think of something that could be of value to them that you could give them for free, and in exchange for their email address. And this could range from even just top tips, something as simple as that, to case studies, or anything else. Or if you've got an MVP, then of course you can give people, let people use it for free for 14 days or 30 days, and do a risk reversal.
Mm-hmm. A couple more questions here in the chat. Noah's asking, how do you come up with the initial idea for the kombucha and the anti-aging supplements?
So the initial idea for the kombucha came from the actual idea to do kombucha. Is that the question? Because that came from Emma, my business partner, who she lived in Richmond, Virginia, and you guys are way ahead of us on a lot of stuff. And she was there years ago, like 5 years ago, and kombucha, everyone was drinking kombucha. And then she got to the UK and no one had heard of it. And so we thought maybe, if it's taken off over there and it's taken off in Australia and Canada and New Zealand, well, maybe we might be the next English-speaking country for it to take off. So let's jump on this now. And it's starting to grow here. So we're really enjoying it. Mm-hmm. And then with the food supplements as well, we already do supplements. And so we're always looking for other areas to get into. So we looked at sports nutrition, and that was very, very highly competitive. And we do a lot of analysis on Amazon to see, where the competition is. And we identified a few products that we thought were low-hanging fruit. And so we chose that product. It's since then, incidentally, got a lot of competition. So a lot of people have jumped on it. But at the time, it was low competition. So we made hay while the sun shone.
Great. Question here from Amy. She's asking, sort of, you're an outsider in the kombucha business coming in. How does one identify the supply chain and suppliers for a new product like that in a market? What advice?
It's a great question. It's a great question. And the problem you have with kombucha is it's not beer. So the beer industry is so much more advanced than kombucha. So there's free websites everywhere, telling you how to make it, telling you where to get your bottles from, your labels from, all of that kind of stuff. And so we had to make a lot of mistakes along the way. We did speak to a few of our kind of, I wouldn't call them competitors because we're in different countries. We spoke to some in Canada, actually, kombucha people in Canada, businesses in Canada, and they were so helpful in Montreal. And we spoke to quite a few there, and they gave us ideas and told us where to look. And we joined a few forums as well, a few Facebook groups, and found our way. But we made a lot of mistakes at the beginning as well. And we paid a lot for our bottles at the beginning, a lot for our labels, which is mostly costs, to be fair. And we've managed to get those costs down now, which has really improved our margins. Great question.
Great. Last quick question. So in terms of, we get a lot of B2B questions here on the series. If you were to select, let's say, the decision-making unit in a B2B sale, how would you go about finding that persona to interview? Who would you target first?
Well, it's quite a complex question, that, isn't it? Because it all depends on what product what service you're talking about in B2B. So you've really got to identify who are the influencers in that decision making, who are the ultimate decision makers, and then try and talk to them. And sometimes with B2B, especially with something that's got a long sales cycle, if it's a really high-end product, then there's a lot of people, a lot of different value propositions you've got to create along the way for the different decision makers, and it can get quite complex. But if you can map all of that out, and if you're getting into something, you've got to really understand who those decision makers are, who the influencers are on that decision, and you've got to speak to them. It's all about speaking to people, and people love giving information. They do. People are, that's why I'm doing this now. I love sharing information. There's always people out there who've done something before who will share information with you, or your target audience, people who would potentially buy your product or service, who really would love to share information with you. So people who've bought something similar before.
Great. Listen, thank you so much, Kenny. It was a real pleasure having you and taking time. And thank you everyone for joining.
Thank you so much. And thanks for your questions. And feel free to drop me an email anytime, kenny@findtheedge.com. I'd love to talk to you and bounce ideas.